Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of A Sip of Knowledge with Marty Duffy, Liz Rhodes, and Lew Bryson. Plus, this week's special guest, Johnny Jeffery of Bentley Heritage Estate Distillery and Good Guy Distillers, which we'll be learning all about throughout the show today. Real quick before I turn things over to your host, I'm Will Hookinga from Zavvi.co. As always, just want to point out a few ways that you can interact with everyone throughout the show today. So to your right, you'll see a chat box, which is already quite chattery over there. So feel free to say hello. Let us know where you're tuning in from. If you have thoughts on Johnny's hats, there's already been feel free to chime in. If you have questions throughout the show, they don't have to just be about hats. They can be about anything. There's a little button at the bottom that says ask a question. So just press that button, enter your question. I'll be keeping an eye out for those. And last but not least, feel free to invite your friends to join us. There's a share button at the top that makes it easy to do that. But with that said, Marty, Liz, Lou, I'll turn things over to you now.
Thank you, Will. And remember, don't look down on people unless you're on a ladder or the dwarfs. All right. My name is Martin Duffy. I'm a former senior master of whiskey for DIAGEO, little mom and pop joint. And also 18 glorious months as the national brand ambassador for Benedictine. That's what you probably know me best as. And then
who doesn't?
Yeah, I know, really. The national TV show I used to have when I had
the Benedictine Hour. Yeah, that was wonderful. Magic.
Always open with a prayer.
But only 5 minutes of it was about Benedictine. The rest of it was about the rest of the cocktail.
Yes, just a small portion.
One mil
small portion of Benedictine. That's all it goes.
We had to do a whole Benedictine show. God damn it.
We should. Benedictine whiskey cocktails. They're actually quite nice. 8 years as a co-producer of Chicago Independent Spirit Expo, and for the last almost 7 years, the sole brand representative for Glencairn Crystal. That's right. So, and also I have a new book out. I have a new book out. It's called Devil's Harvest.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's all about marijuana and how bad it is for you. So, yeah, get that. That's available on Amazon and on a couple of 30 books sites that will be listed down at the bottom. Yeah, Lizard.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you so much, Marty. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. I'm seeing a lot of familiar names out there, which is amazing. So thanks for joining. I'm Liz Rhodes, technical distiller and spirit consultant. I have just over a decade of experience in alcoholic beverage industry, a couple different substrates and products ranging from beer, rum, vodka, but my particular favorite and expertise happens to be whiskey, where the magic happens. I spent most of my career at, as Marty alluded to and mentioned, a mom and pop organization.
Anyone even knows who that is?
I'm in the back of a general store, I believe, where they work out of.
I'm now currently founder and principal at Spirit Safe Consulting. And hey, want to learn more? You can absolutely learn more by scrolling down to the About the Host section. There's actually a link to my website, so check it out. Also, really excited to have Johnny on today, and I am wrapping Good Guy Distillers with a shirt because
Rad.
Lou?
Awesome. That's a good guy.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Liz. I only have one thing to say, folks. Buy my damn book. Thank you. I am Lew Bryson. I am a whiskey writer. I've been at that for well over 20 years now. Kind of coming up on 30. God. Wow. Yeah. Anyways, we were talking in the pre-show. I'm old. I spent 20 years as the managing editor at Whisky Advocate Magazine, and then went freelance, and I'm currently a senior drinks writer for the Daily Beast, the award-winning Daily Beast website. Have a non-whiskey piece coming up on Radlers, the German fruit beers. which are enjoying a moment right now, which is kind of cool. And today I'm drinking a whiskey that we're going to be talking about shortly, the Good Guys Blend. So more on that in a bit. Liz? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Marty.
Yeah.
Marty.
A certain
Marty.
scientist
From there, buddy.
isn't prepared. Boom. Yeah. So, hi, everyone. Yes, this week, a very, very special episode of A Sip of Knowledge because we have a man who is a master distiller, number one. But two, I'm going to read a little something I wrote for this occasion, all about Johnny.
Is it a poem?
It's a
Did
poem.
you write me a poem?
It's a poem, and it doesn't really rhyme. It's all about how at MSU, John worked with distillers from all over the world to make products and to start up craft distilleries. Outside of work, John loves mountains, deserts, oceans, sky, trail wandering, forages for plants, smelling and tasting things, cooking with whatever he finds. Also, he's known in the Chicago underworld as Johnny Hats. We welcome from Bentley Heritage Distilling, Johnny Jeffries. Hello.
Hey, thanks.
Hey, Johnny.
Thanks for having me. This is super fun. So, just two quick corrections. It's Johnny Hat. I've only got one.
Yeah, but the underworld.
You know, something like that could get you killed, Marty.
Is it like Johnny One Note, but Johnny One Hat?
Johnny One Hat. That's even better. I better tell the underworld guys.
I'm totally stealing that.
Date's a better name. Johnny One Hat.
Number two?
Yeah.
Number two is, while my title is Master Distiller, I call myself Head Distiller. I feel like the Master Distiller is aspirational.
Yeah.
I would love to feel like I have earned that one day.
Bravo.
Head Distiller, please.
Well, I'll change that on my poem that I wrote.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You're a website scrubber. You took all that smelling and tasting stuff from a bio, I think.
Well, it's on the website.
Yeah.
And I usually don't describe people as they really like to smell and taste things. That's not
that looked much better in writing than it sounded coming out of your mouth.
Thank you. With all that Shakespearean training I had. I'm very hello, young Johnny. I hardly knew thee. So, Johnny, let's go back in time, shall we? A little. This is your life. So, how'd you go from wandering trails and smelling things to being a distiller, especially at Bentley Heritage, and plus you were also instrumental in helping other distilleries get started. Yeah, what got you into all that? What was?
I like to think so. So, man, I got to tell you, I've been watching for the past few weeks a little more regularly, happily, and like hearing Wondrich talk about wanting to be a rock star. I had this moment where I was like. Is this everyone's story? Like, is this everyone is just like, I wanted to be, and it didn't work out. So I almost have a sound engineering degree. I went to Columbia College in Chicago where I grew up. And like, there was just a moment in my 20s where I was like, the best story I've got is I lived in the loft apartment that Trent Reznor lived in at one point. And that's my rock star story. So this probably isn't my route to glory.
That's a pretty good one. Like
kind of rad.
Yeah, but how many tenants in between?
Open for Trent Reznor. I didn't there was no part of that where I was succeeding in my rock star dreams, really. So
Bruce Springsteen and I were dorm mates.
Yeah.
I
lived in the same county.
You're doing better than me. I was going to be a librarian, so you're way ahead here.
You should see when Lou takes off his glasses and lets his hair down. Hot.
Sex. Just all sex.
Hot librarian Lew Bryson. Good. I'm going to drink to that too.
The show, okay? Like.
I'm sorry. We haven't even started drinking yet. All right.
Speak for yourself, partner.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So like my next career was, I got a degree in exercise physiology, and I was an athletic trainer for a lot of years and a personal trainer. I did a lot of long-term rehab, but like a big part of that ended up being personal training. And in personal training, if you're not dealing with diet, you're like not doing your job. So in the process, I was learning and reading a lot about food, and like totally got into sustainable agriculture and learning about food systems and, learning about traditional agricultural, like multi-layered businesses. My wife is Polish, and we traveled to Poland a handful of times. And like the thing that we would see there that blew me away was this old world style of agriculture where you'd have family farms all over the countryside who are growing whatever they sell and then have like orchards and huge gardens. And you go there in fall and everybody's picking the fruit and the kids are eating the fruit and the wives are in the kitchen pie filling and preserving the fruit, and the men are making wine and distilling in the forest. And like it was just this whole thing, and they would all sell this stuff to each other in markets. And like in the process of like trying to find my way into that and out of what I was doing, I found Dr. Chris Berglund at Michigan State, who became my mentor. He was running the Artisan Distilled Spirits program there at the time. And it was like 2 stills in a brewery and nobody really running them. So he was looking for somebody, sort of, but he didn't have any money and he was super difficult to get a hold of. So I emailed him like 1,000 times and he didn't answer. So I showed up one day, and the way he loved to tell it was that he like put me in a graduate program just so I'd leave him the fuck alone. And he put me in I went into the food chemistry program there. And one of the kind of crucial elements of that was there was no money for research in spirits. And so we had to basically run a little incubator business. So anybody who wanted to come in and test run a product, or by the time I left, anybody who needed contract manufacturing or troubleshooting, this is in like 2008, 2009. So like the craft movement was like 5 distilleries, or maybe 10 distilleries quickly to become 500. And, it was like this weird world where like 5 consultants knew how to do things and everyone else was sort of trying to figure it out. And like a lot of the people who were trying to figure it out would call Chris and be like, hey, how do you distill whiskey? And he would turn to me and be like, hey, how do we distill whiskey? And I'd be like, I don't fucking know. I just got here. Like, what do you, so I'd go read all the books and like we'd do these huge R&D projects where we would like, do 50 distillations, write up the results, do GC analysis of like industry products, like go do distillery tours to get some new make and like compare our new make to their new make. And then like write things up and talk to people and do, like consulting work out of the university. So like that gets me to there. And that 3 years, I met John McKee, Colin Keegan, these folks are in the comments over there because we bring our pals with us everywhere we go. And like, we are indeed their first spirits to start their distilleries up. And, among many, many others. So I built a lot of relationships there, and coming out of that, one of the sort of ongoing contract manufacturing jobs that we had was for Death Store Spirits. So they were all contract manufacturing at the time and clearly needed to build a distillery. So they hired me to come there and build a distillery and train a staff for a couple of years and then leave because I wanted out of the Midwest.
Yeah.
I mean, I love me some Midwest people. Yeah. Like September to June, where the clouds are like here.
That's how we weed out the weaklings, Johnny. That's how we weed them out, baby.
Call me a weakling. I needed
get out of the kitchen. Oh, wait, that doesn't work.
Like,
get out of the refrigerator.
Get out of the oven. What'd you say, Liz?
I said I left too, so I've you know, like I don't know what.
Yeah.
I have no investment, so I don't give a shit. Go ahead, say anything you want.
I don't have any time for either of you. Get it, keep going. I just drink.
Funny, like I feel like I'm gonna get in trouble here. I love the intensity of Midwestern people, like just grind it out, like figure out a way to enjoy that weather, get as bitter as you possibly can, and then like throw it all off as soon as the sun comes out. Like super rad, super miss Lake Michigan. But like I used to, when I moved to Santa Fe, when I was working with Santa Fe Spirits, I used to send pictures of me in my underwear in the yard to my friends, and I'd title them Sun Apocalypse or Solar Apocalypse or something, because they'd be in the middle of polar, like polar weather rolling down, and it'd be like 70 degrees by noon, even if there was snow on the ground.
Didn't Anthony Weiner get in trouble for sending pictures of him in his underwear to people? How would you
No,
know?
he was wearing less.
Is the
He was
problem.
wearing less than that. Is really the issue.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Snoga. I don't know if you're familiar with the term.
Was it?
Snoga.
Mm-mm.
Yoga in the snow.
Yoga in the snow.
Yoga
Yeah.
in the snow. So cold yoga.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yoga.
Wow.
Frozen yoga.
Chicago tactic there. That's how you say
Got it.
Snoga.
Well, like there's goat yoga. I'm in the desert. We could start like rattlesnake or scorpion yoga.
I think if there's
Wow.
rattlesnake, why don't you have like rattlesnake jogging? Because that's what I would start doing. With a rattlesnake.
No.
The rattlesnake sprint. That's it.
You'll have to work on the branding.
Yeah.
The rattlesnake boogie.
But that's what we do here.
So how
It's a
did you get?
branding pressure cooker right here.
Now you're at Bentley. Now you're Bentley 100% of the time. Well, not. I mean, you share
Yes.
your time now with the good guys, but I mean that's a side project. But Bentley,
Yeah, good guys.
is your main thing.
Yeah. So when I was leaving Death's Door, I mean, I got this weird phone call while I was walking
Sorry.
around. That was a cackle. While I was walking around the floor, I was getting ready to leave, didn't know quite what I was doing. And I got this call from somebody at Bentley who was like, "Hey, would you want to build like a little distillery in Nevada?" I was like, "Sure." What does that even mean? Sure. I'm moving to Santa Fe next week and I don't have any work. Yes, please. So, I moved to Santa Fe with my family. I worked with Colin Keegan at Santa Fe Spirits part-time. I did consulting work, and the consulting time that I was putting in very quickly got soaked by the amount of work we were putting in at Bentley. And that was Rob Masters and I of Family Jones working together as partners, early on with the Bentley team to get the thing designed and built. And it really was like, a cool little distillery at the beginning. And then it would be like, well, what if we made bourbon? It's like, well, then we need another distillery. It's like, well, if we build another distillery, what about rye and gin and vodka? And shouldn't we grow all our own grain and malt it? And now it's, one of the country's few estate distilleries. So we grow all of our grain on Bentley Ranch. We process all the grain. We malt all our malt. We have a single malt distillery that is standalone in a LEED Gold certified distillery because we reuse these old buildings. The owners are super passionate about reusing old buildings instead of knocking
That's
them
a
down.
whole other building.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
old mill.
Yeah. So early 20th century flour mill turned feed mill, then, mothballed. And when we walked in there, all the equipment was still in the building, like all these old leather band driven seed cleaners and mills. So we have all the equipment stored for when we open the museum. But that got turned into the single malt distillery. And, with Forsyth stills and a traditional mash tun. And then the other building, which is it's the sign says Minden Butter Company. It was a dairy plant around the same period. We turned into another distillery, and that's where barreling and bottling happens. So that does all the bourbon, rye, gins, vodka, and 2016-ish. We broke ground in 2015. Rob and I were traveling to Minden, Nevada, like 2 weeks of the month, every month. And it was clear that that was kind of the turning point when they needed someone full-time, or some people full-time, more people full-time devoted to it. Because Bentley does other things, property management. And so they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Which,
We're back to it.
Fits with our theme, but going back to Chicago, and I moved out here. And so 2016, 17 was all construction engineering, putting equipment in. 2018 in August, we started up. And this is it's not massive. If over here is the big guys and over here is craft, we're still, in terms of scale, really small compared to big, but we're pretty big compared to small. And so our startup.
I use that. That's pretty good.
Is that medium? Is that just medium?
No, it ain't quite medium yet.
There's no medium.
You're big compared to
There's
small, and you're
big,
small
big for
compared
small,
to big.
big for big, small for small. Yeah, no, those are the categories. That's we're limited on.
Sliding scale. Yeah.
Nobody wants to be called medium.
Don't screw with the words here.
Smaller than big. I'm bigger than small.
You got it. We're
kind of like your glass there, Marty.
Look at that size, that handle. That's
shit, look at that ham fist.
Yeah, it's huge.
No so we started up in August 2018, and this is starting up an automated plant from scratch. So we spent easily a year in startup. Launched the brands in a couple of states. We have a tasting room, and did really well in 2019.
Was already going. You were already growing grain.
Yeah, the ranch is decades old.
Okay.
Had cattle on it, and they just switched from alfalfa to grain. Actually, the building I'm sitting in is one of our rick houses. We have two because why build one? We have two rick houses because they're climate and temperature, humidity and temperature.
Oh, right.
Because we're high desert. We're at 5,000-ish feet and Nevada desert. So if we did open air rick houses, you'd have to breathe our whiskey on the way out of the building, right?
Johnny, what would be if it wasn't climate controlled? What would be the evaporation rate for you guys?
So I have seen desert climate rick houses without any control lose 40% in 2 years.
Wow.
Which is also, there's a word for that. It's called bankruptcy.
Yeah. Good God.
It's called throwing money.
Caribbean is about 10% annual.
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah, right.
The Caribbean.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make a comparison, but obviously the humidity is
right.
totally
The humidity holds liquid in the barrel, right?
And where's the grain farm? I mean, it's in Nevada. Every time I've been to Nevada, all I've ever seen is desert. So I'm surprised.
So northern Nevada is all of these beautiful, alpine valleys. Oh. So our water comes out of the first well that was dug in the area I always get the dates wrong, so I won't say a date, late 19th century. Well number one was the first well dug in this area. And it is, we have irrigation lakes around the valley that we live in that are filled with snowmelt off the Eastern Sierras. So we're if you're looking at Lake Tahoe and you fall backward off the mountains toward the east, you land in Minden. You land in Carson Valley.
Wait, can you actually do that?
It would be a really long fall. You'd have to roll for a day and a half because it's 2,500 feet. Actually, stupid side story. I once took my kids sledding in one of the mountain valleys up here, and we drove to the top of the valley. And they sledded down for an hour and 15 minutes because it was so high, which was super rad. And then I made them walk back up, and they never wanted to go sledding again.
Wow. Good times, though.
It was super fun.
That's a hell of a ride.
Yeah, and you need a little helicopter to bring you up on the sled.
Just a little
up. It's
like
kind of
the
Apocalypse Now. Just bring it up there and then drop
sledding. We're like alpine sledders, bruh.
Kind of like the surfers of alpine sledding. Boom.
That's how they talk in the West.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm in the Midwest, pal.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Not the small West,
Bruh.
not the
Yeah.
West, but just
The
kind of
Midwest.
Midwest.
Medium West. I'm in the medium West.
I wanted to back up just a little bit. But I wanted to say, I think you're aware, but I've also done some pilot activities at Michigan State post you.
Oh.
But no, I wanted to say thanks because I think that program really became something useful for our industry. I also learned at the Michigan State facility is that you can't hammer mill oats that have a hull on them.
Yeah.
So
because of the fiberglass in your eyes? Yeah.
So I learned
What?
that very important.
It's the worst.
At Michigan State. So I wanted to say thank you for that.
I didn't know that until we did it in Nevada because we have oats in our neutral spirits. And I have so many pictures of our team. Like we built a little incubator distillery to like test, we're planting all these grains in the high desert and we're kind of sure that it's going to work. And we're already building giant distilleries. But so we built this little pilot distillery and started testing grains. And our first test runs of oats are human men in Tyvek suits with masks on because the whole it's like fiberglass, like it gets in your eyes, it gets in your skin.
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Gross.
So was this something that folks were dealing with, when they were using oats back in the 19th century where
there are a lot of probably roller milling, right?
Yeah, different milling technology.
Yeah.
Wow. Who'd ever thought?
And, they didn't give a shit back then.
That
was just a normal day.
The Quaker guy and the Quaker oats,
overheat.
Did you ever notice all the little scars when he's pouring it in that picture?
Did he have
a terrible?
One guy on the
but he didn't give a shit. Because they were tough.
Squirrely eye.
It's funny.
So why the two different types of mills? That was one of the things I wanted to ask.
Well, the changeover to hammer milling for distilling largely involves the use of grains that aren't lauderable, right? Barley, you can pull the liquid off because it has that structured hull. And if you're not going to use that structured hull and pull the liquid off, you might as well beat the crap out of that grain to make it easier to move. It moves like a fluid, and you can pump it if you're putting flour in water, where if you're trying to move solids, you're, in a pump. Like roller milled grain is just harder to move.
Okay.
Liz, fair answer?
Yeah, I mean, grain versus malt. And I guess even back to the point of we're having this whole conversation. Also,
I'm
similar.
Sorry, did you say hull conversation?
That's what it sounded like.
I'm going to smack you.
Whole conversation.
It sounded like hull to me too, Lou.
Similarly to why high adjunct breweries would use rice hulls or oat hulls to supplement.
Oh, just for filter.
Their laterability. Yeah.
Yeah.
You say oat holes?
Listen here, you oat hole.
That's what it sounds like. I like that.
Now we're in Minnesota or Wisconsin.
I was just in Minnesota last week, and I noticed my Canadian accent picked up a little bit while I was there.
Nice.
Doesn't everyone
deploy it? I mean,
they're Canadian.
Marty goes full Chicago every fourth sentence. It's like it's a tool. It's a tool.
He's a tool.
Yeah, he is.
There's a bunch of tools I know of.
There's a bunch of
my street. Fake. There's one. Johnny, bring that out west. Jig off. That's a beautiful Midwestern term.
That is because I hear that in Pittsburgh, and they say that's the easternmost Midwest city.
And CBS put that show, Jags.
Can I go?
We are all looking. What?
Can I go jalopy? Anybody? Jalopies?
Jalopies. Yeah.
I miss jalopies. There's no jalopies in the West because there's no salt. So the cars aren't literally rusting before your eyes and still being kept running, puking smoke and panels of metal falling off, and there's still
rust right underneath the doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jalopies.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There's been a ton of comments actually so far. Mark, thank you. He says roller mills, shudder. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Wow, there have been a lot of comments. Yeah. Why don't you go through those, Lizard, before we get to the whiskey?
Okay.
Yeah, some of them are repeatable.
Some.
Well, can I also like dig back a few years and do the good guy distiller story, and then we can taste the whiskey? So,
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I like the
to
way you
interrupt.
staged that. That's good.
Yeah, sorry, Marty. Yeah.
No, it's all right, John.
I can take off.
show, but yeah, you go right ahead. God, they move out west, and
dude, it's the hat. It's the hat. It gives him power.
Yeah.
Power back. Listen, say.
He out-hatted me. Yeah. So like Good Guy Distillers is this totally informal group of, jokers. Like John McKee and I of Headframe Spirits started it just as a place to go to like hang out and tell stupid jokes. And it stayed that until we realized that like we were bringing people in that we super respected and people were asking cool questions and sharing information. And then we totally on purpose decided that it was going to be a community of people, respecting good information and sharing good information. This is really like at a time when for distillers, you could go to a certain number of forums and like try to ask questions and people would tell you things that would blow up buildings. And then other people would be like, no, don't do that. Don't do anything. And you'd get in these arguments with people who were just spreading really terrible information. So we like created this carefully kind of, cultured group of people. Yeah. Really? Yeah.
Oh, very dangerous.
Libraries. Yeah.
Nitrocellulose book covers. Actually, not kidding about that part. So,
Stop trying to make librarians cool. They're never cool.
Not cool. They're stupid.
Being a librarian is kind of like being an action hero. I mean, putting out, but hey, librarians are my heroes, Lou.
They're both humans. I love people. That's about it.
Yeah.
Like trying to make a quadriplegic.
An eye on the noise pollution.
I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead. Yes. Go ahead, Johnny.
Lou, shouldn't you be policing the interrupting in these conversations? Excuse me.
Not my deal.
Mr. Duffy.
Dude, no, I got kicked out for being too loud. That's why I'm no longer a librarian.
Why you're not a librarian?
Can you imagine Lou laughing in a library? Oh my God.
Shit, I literally had people in the library shushing me. That happened at least twice.
Yeah.
I took it as a sign.
Time
Lou
to go.
Scares hyenas with that laugh.
Taking my beard.
So good guys.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Please.
Sorry, Johnny.
Good guys. So Good Guys is now, a very specific thing, which is a Facebook group of like less than 150 people at any given moment who exchange information and spread good information and emphasize safety and emphasize, like really try to be a force for, spreading legit information to people who are starting up to whatever, but it's still super informal. So, what you're holding, the whiskey glasses that you're holding there kind of is like our coming out party of us trying to do something a little more legit. And so, something that, puts a mark in the world. And so, the way this project is going to go, 10 distilleries sent whiskey to Butte, Montana. A handful of us met to blend it. All the whiskey was donated. All the proceeds of the whiskey are going to be donated to the Step Up Foundation of the ACSA, which I'm going to read off my notes because I never remember the full thing.
Poem?
I'm going to read a poem about Step Up. So Step Up is the Spirits Training Entrepreneurship Program for underrepresented professionals. And what that all means is ACSA has created this foundation to create an internship program for underrepresented groups and start training them, putting them in distilleries, giving them marketing, sales, business training, and then helping with job placement. And that is going to launch next year. And we hope to be one of the first sort of bigger contributors to that through this fundraising effort of really great whiskey.
Now, Johnny, since I believe a good number of the contributors are actually online here with us, can you reel off some of the distilleries?
I think Paul Letko's too grumpy to show up to these things, but
Yeah,
Pew
he
Spirits
is
is in
the
there.
worst.
Randy Hudson's too much of a hippie to show up, but 888 on Nantucket
here.
Island is in here. Headframe, John doesn't do anything anyway, so he shows up to all of these. We've got Jake Holshoe from Rogue Spirits.
Jake is
We've
going to
got
be on the
Portland's
show.
Distillery. Yay, Jake's awesome. We've got State Line Distillery, who's actually was one of my distillers at at Death Store. We've got Sonoma Whiskey in California. We've got Santa Fe Spirits. We've got a barrel of Bentley single malt in there, so it's 10 contributors. And then, the glass has been donated. The label design has been donated. The FET is going to be paid as a donation. So this is all of it is going to be paid for, supplied by donations, and then all the proceeds will be donated. And there will be a website eventually. We don't really have our stuff together quite that well, but gooddeedspirits.com should go live within a month or so. At which point you can look there for more information as we figure out how we're going to actually sell
Liz,
it.
I assume we will make some kind of announcement when that happens. Can we do that? I'm
Who,
sure
us?
you don't mind,
Please.
right?
Us?
No, here on the show when it's available.
Yeah, you kidding?
Yeah.
Be the first.
Please.
Ought to be.
Yeah. How much would a bottle go for, Johnny?
Don't really know yet. Hoping for I don't know, between 50 and 80 bucks a bottle is kind of what we're shooting for. We haven't nailed that down yet. Should point out you're drinking barrel strength, so we're 62.4. So don't go
And
too
nothing
hard.
wrong with that, by the way.
Right?
I mentioned that earlier. This
Yeah.
is really sliding smooth
Yippee
at that proof.
Yeah.
Liz
And
always carries an eyedropper in her purse.
I do.
do you
It's
really?
yeah.
Can you pull it out?
Marty's always got at least 5 Glencairns on him at any one moment, and I've never been able to figure out where.
You don't want to.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
Are you pulling it out from behind ears?
You
Yeah.
wish.
Marty's got the glassware. I've got the pipettes. Together, we're busy.
Coming out with a Glencairn Puppet, by the way. Just so you know.
Explain a glass pipette
Yeah.
shaped like this.
Well, with a little Glencairn at the. Actually, I have one right here. Boom.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That's
these
a
are going to be
box,
on the market next month.
Love that.
Wow. Really? Whoa.
Not to
Nice.
steal any of your thunder, but yeah, huge. Please. Put in comments in because
Yeah, the glass is going to be a sideline shortly. I can tell.
It will be because of Glencairn.
Yeah. I mean, if there is one thing that I have heard in all of my years of consulting, where are all the pipettes, you guys?
Where've all the pipettes gone?
That's actually why people hire me, for the pipettes.
Just to get there.
Only reason.
That's because they think you're a pipe band.
Cigar, pipette. That's an old reference. That's an advertising reference.
Cigarettes,
Yep, it just went.
chewing gum, pipettes.
Mm.
What happened to those?
I realized it would for almost everybody. That's why I made the note.
Hey, John. So, Johnny, look, I had a question about your guys' whiskey at Bentley Heritage. I mean, what was your whole thinking creating a whiskey there? I'm always curious as far as any distiller, because you want something that's going to stand out, something that's different but tastes good. You got to think marketing in. But so, what was your guys thinking when?
Well, let's start with single malt, and I'll give you some nerd fodder because there's some cool stuff in there. Our first conversations around single malt distillations were about direct fired stills. And being a food chemist, what I look to in there is what is direct fire catalyzing? What is direct fire and copper going to do against that hot surface that you're not going to get out of steam? And like many things, if you go ask Scottish distillers this, they'll say, no, we switched to steam, which means direct fire is meaningless and didn't do anything because we make great whiskey now.
Springbank.
Right. Springbank. I think Glendronach switched 12 years ago or something from their coal stills. But everybody else was just no, we use steam, which means that's the best way to make whiskey. So, direct fire here was not really going to be an option, because when we looked at, the stills are actually in the silos of that building, which, like, stills with direct fire look awfully like a giant Roman candle in the middle of a tiny Western town if anything were to go wrong, right? So we weren't going to do fire in those like contained 60-foot tall silos. So what we ended up doing was engineering a super cool heating system that is an external calandria. So it's a heat exchanger with thermal fluid in it, heating oil instead of steam. So we can run the thermal fluid up to 190 C, catalyze caramelization reactions, Maillard reactions, browning reactions, and drive the temperature back down a little bit. So we have this like really unique heating system for trying to like, like the thing we talk about all the time here is that we have tons of respect for forklifts with backup alarms, right, Liz? Is that what we just heard? Construction attack.
Actually, McKee just texted me. That's legitimately what that was.
We have tons of respect for tradition, right? Like we are always trying to look back to see, what methods have been lost that probably had a lot of, like effects that we have dismissed because we've moved away from older technologies. But, state of the art, we have GCMS, we do a lot of analysis. So we have this like ultra cool heating system specifically because we wanted to do like a space side older style of single malt. So I talked about our multiple rick houses. The other one, the one that I'm not in.
Oh, wait a second. Can I ask the heating thing?
Go, please.
A follow-up. Just so the only heat input is the calandria?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we pump out of the still at 600 gallons a minute, run it through this calandria against a 190-degree surface, and then we can change how much of the surface we're touching, and then back into the pot. And listen, like we can go down a rabbit hole here. The still is 15 feet in the air, and the calandria is down below. So you would expect with a surface like that to get a ton of charring. But because the 2,500 gallon pot is up above the heat exchanger, the head pressure of that still keeps the liquid. It doesn't actually boil in the calandria. Wow. It boils when it's released into the pot. It's superheated and it flash boils in the pot, and that's what runs the distillation. So, that's another
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's not just distillation and maturation, but you've got some unique features that you're doing upstream as well. Because I think with the two separate distilleries, you're in wood and open top for your single malt, and then in the
open top. Okay. The buildings, we wanted open top, but the buildings are so enclosed. Like the silos are tall, and we couldn't cut through the steel. One of the biggest priorities was keeping the outer envelope as it had been forever. So when you drive up to that building, you would never know there aren't big windows looking at pretty stills. Right. There's an old brick building. So we ended up putting lids on them. But we use the wood in part because we can build up a diverse flora in the wood matrix for sure. Flora.
I had to get in my micro terroir.
Flora.
Terroir. I gotta get it in.
Yeah, totally. No, listen, like our corn for our bourbon is it's called earth tones. So it's like the way I describe it is every time you go to like the Thanksgiving table and there's the multicolored ears of corn there, that's an earth tones corn. So it's a heritage variety, derived from the varieties that evolved in the Mexican mountains. And it grows pretty well here, or as well as, corn does in the high desert with the short growing season. And it has all these different colors. And just because of the elevation changes and the way the water moves in the valley, we get different color emphasis in different parts of our pivots. So like we'll have like heads at the top of the pivots that are like more green throughout the ears, and at the bottom of the pivots are developing more purple, just based on how much water is holding up in the soil. I mean, you drive a mile in this valley and you can get hours less sunlight than other parts of the valley because we're surrounded by mountains. So Yeah, so our corn goes all the way in the southeast end of the valley where the most sun is, where the water holding capacity is a little better. Mr. Bryson, did you have a question?
When you say pivot, you mean like irrigation pivot? Okay.
Yeah,
Just wanted to
literal
make sure.
irrigation pivots.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
It's irrigation waters from a lake we fill, and then it's pumped to the, to those big, when you're flying over Nevada and you see the big
those
round green
circles.
circles.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what it is.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would if with the elevation, and you have these climate controlled rick houses that obviously smaller than large, but larger than small distillery would have. What are you getting? What are you getting from that? Especially elevation, because you guys are pretty high up. Are you seeing big differences as how the whiskey matures?
So the elevation primarily from where we're at in the process is definitely affecting the distillation. We're 5 degrees lower in our boiling points across the board. So, so there are some differences there. Correctable differences to my mind. You make your cuts a little differently and you can deal with that. The rick houses, we have a Scotland, so we have one building that is cool-ish and humid year-round. Like we dropped a pin in Balindalock, and we maintain, like we just track temperature and humidity because we are trying to do, somewhat of a Speyside style. So that rick house for the single malt specifically is just cranking out fog banks. And then the one that I'm sitting in is much hotter. So. We're doing much more of kind of a, for our bourbon and rye, we need the heat. So we're driving much more heat and humidity, like relative to what you see in Scotland. I mean, Scotland gets hot in summer, but 95 degree day and night for multiple months, like you see in Kentucky, is not as much of a thing there.
See, that's interesting. You can basically make different styles of whiskey, couldn't you? I mean, you'd almost have like a what's that big the DIAGEO one, Liz?
Cameron Bridge.
Rosile.
Is it Rosile?
It's Rosile, the one where they make various styles of Scotch whiskey now for the blends primarily, I believe. But that's kind of what you guys have, except in the rick house. Totally. I mean, obviously your stills you can play around with, but that's really kind of fun. That gives you guys a lot
it's super fun. And because it's a state, right? Because everything's with it, like under our umbrella, we have, shout out to my nerds at Bentley. I've got so many smart people coming up with so many more fun ideas than I could come up with on my own. We've got 10 years worth of fun experimentation to get into before we, I set our mash bills for our initial releases. Our bourbon and rye mash bills are set for the moment, but because of the acreage we've got, we'll grow experimental grains and test them. We've got a little R&D skid that we'll be filling barrels probably forever with experiments that we cook up. Some of them, I mean, I told my production staff that everyone gets one free stupid idea every year to test out, because one of our products, which is a vodka rested in sherry barrels and then, pulled out at like less than 40 days, started as a stupid idea and ended up being a fucking glorious stupid idea. It's delicious. And, we were talking about oats earlier. The benefit to using oats is they're like 18% lipids by weight. So there's a ton of oil in there. Which means if you distill it right, you pull all these oils over and you get this really viscous, rich spirit that you can't get out of other grains. So,
I was going to say you're experimenting. You have 2,000 acres that you were
2,500 acres under cultivation right now. Yeah.
Okay. How many different varietals at any given time are you?
So, like at the moment we're, probably 8. And this year got away from us because last year was such a glorious cluster fun. But going into next year, we have a pivot devoted to experimental grains. So we'll get back to, testing out things like einkorn and, heritage rye varietals, that kind of stuff.
When you say you're using pivot as a measure of land, how many acres is that roughly?
Our biggest pivots are 200 acres.
Wow. Wow.
Which, like, there was a learning curve for me coming out here, because we were running like 100-gallon pot with 4 300-gallon fermenters in our like R&D plant before we got the big distillery built. And our rancher would come out and be like, "Hey, you want to try some triticale?" And we'd all go, "Yay, let's try it." And he'd go plant 200 acres of triticale and come back with like 200,000 pounds. Be like, "All right, so be like, I'm putting 800 pounds in a test mash, bro. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were going to do that." But he has other outlets, and he he found he can sell it for cattle feed and other stuff if he needs to. But yeah, the scale, I mean, it's the West, right? Like, like in Chicago, scale means you drive for 4.5 hours before you leave the suburbs. Right, like you hit traffic and then you're out by Schaumburg, but like, but in the West, right, like half of my employees drive 100 miles a day, like 50 miles in to do their shift and 50 miles back out, because that's like a Western commute.
Right.
Which
you got nice open highway, right?
It's gorgeous drive,
like something you'd see in an old,
totally
modern day Western. Gun toting. You can put a rifle rack.
Yeah, gun toting in traffic is totally a thing here.
Yeah. Freedom.
In Kentucky.
In Kentucky.
True.
Hey, so with the good guys, you were mentioning you had the Facebook page. And it's a private group, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So what if a budding young distiller out there wanted to join that group to get a little taste of that an apple of knowledge you guys are dangling from your tree?
We're hyper selective. So like
good guys. You have to find out if they're a good guy.
Like I mean the first.
Listen,
like I don't even look. We don't even look at member requests, but once a year. So like once now we're going to get into good guy politics. We have a purge once a year.
Guys anymore, little snotty.
So every year we have an arbitrary purge where John and I have a whiskey and look for anybody who's not contributing, because our number one rule is you have to contribute. So if you're not contributing, you get kicked. And if you ask to get back in, like we always let people back in. It's not like we're very, very tough or hard about it. But we will kick people if we're not seeing them show up. And at the time that we're looking at, who we're going to purge, we look at all the requests. And usually it looks like, the way it looks is like if somebody has just requested and is like, "Oh, I heard about you on Facebook," we, don't admit them. If it looks like they, are associated with somebody who's in the group, we'll reach out. Really, if somebody's in the group and they, they reach out to us and say, "Hey, we want to add somebody, they're a great person," almost every time. Like I can't remember saying no to that, but like we are trying to keep it a group that's small enough that we know everybody by face and name and distillery, and we want it to be intimate. Yep. So we're not gonna turn it into a 1,000-person group for everybody.
Well,
we have a writers group and we do the same thing.
Yeah. I have a glass representative.
We don't let them in.
I have a group on Facebook for people who just represent Glencairn glass.
Tiny glassware. Just tiny Glencairn. Not even the regular sized one.
Just me. I have meetings with myself.
Because those threaten you.
Hey, we have a book club, and there's like 5 of us.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. We do we read papers and
and we're overdue for one. Yeah.
We're overdue because we planned 6 of them and everyone failed to show up.
Friendship.
Right, yeah. Well, Evil Friendship is up next on the GGD reading.
Or read Lou's book and just skip right over to the last.
Just skip that last page. Yep.
Page 211.
253, I think it is. Good reading. Really good reading.
So we have quite a few comments.
Wow.
Yes.
I really super engaged group today. Not surprised.
Yakety yak, yakety yak.
I think it's just the Good Guy group just came on and
Had a good time.
Blasted.
thanks, Federico.
We bring all our friends everywhere we go.
I wanted to
Good Guy Distillers.
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back. So I think on the chat around the launch of the Vatted Malt project, I think McKee said that there's the release is going to be 1,000 bottles.
Yeah, 1,000 bottles. And we're going to try to put all 1,000 bottles somewhere that direct ships. So we have a couple of people that we've talked to who have expressed willingness and interest, and it's not settled, but we'd like them to be shippable because we firmly want to not buy all our own bottles as the fundraiser, even though we totally would because it's great whiskey and we would support it. We want it to function
really
as a way of
good,
raising
by the way.
awareness.
It's
right?
really good.
I'm enjoying the hell out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. But we want it to function as a way of raising awareness of a couple of things, right? There's somewhat of a diversity issue in the distilled spirits industry, which we're trying to help address. And also that people can do good shit if they get together and form groups and, devote their time and energy to making the world a better place. So everybody should try that, should try to do a thing where they get together with their pals and have fun, making the world a better place. Right.
And maybe naming, I'd see a number of people really glom down to the Snow Goat Yoga. I think that's a good name for a whiskey.
We're going to stick with Good Deeds whiskey for the moment.
Or a metal band.
Snow goats. Snow goats. Yeah, that's bad.
Boom. Coming at you. What was it? Somebody had a question, or they said, ask him about this. And it sounded like it was scandalous. Yeah, my nerds need of being fulfilled. My nerds? Oh, my nerds needs. Okay, gotcha.
Nerds needs.
Snow Goat Yoga. Nerds needs.
Hey,
Snow Goat Yoga.
Why?
Warm Springs experience in
Liz...
Montana is what the ask
about.
Oh,
right. Yeah. Ask Johnny about his Warm Springs.
Oh, Christ, the Cold Springs
experience in Montana.
So the Cold Springs is me going to visit John McKee. We bought one of his fantastic distillation columns. And one of the trips that I made up there was to go see the column in process. And he picked me up at the airport to take me to a hot springs off the side of a highway where we stripped down, threw our clothes in the trunk, ran down a hill, climbed into a cold pond at I want to say it was 5 degrees outside with a 40-mile-an-hour wind blowing. And he was like, no, we're going to warm up. And we got into cold water and lay there for 5 minutes while he was
awesome.
Poking around at this rock. No, I'm going to warm it up. And this pee-pee trickle of warm water started making its way into this pond until we both got up and ran back to the car, freezing cold, and left the crappy cold spring.
Neither one of you had genitals at that point. They're just sucked right up into your body.
Yeah.
Wow.
He made up later. He took me to a real one. Don't tell John, but I've got a really great hot spring right nearby here. Next time he comes, it's filled with mites. So we're going to go hit that one up. And I'll just slowly get ready to get in while he plunges in.
I think the secret is out. I think he's on.
It's on the record.
Might have given that one away.
So yeah, back to everyone who's been chiming in. We've got I think Denise Jones, of course, McKee is on. We've already established that. Colin Keegan says, "Hey, Brad Krause, Brad. Good to see you've joined again this week." Mark, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but hey, thanks for joining.
Beerthaler,
yeah.
That one.
Therenthaler.
Oh
yeah.
Noe Jean, Ryan, Patrick says hello from Louisville. Dwight says Chicago is a real place.
Boom. Thank you, Dwight.
David Lutterney says, more hats, more bandanas. I actually, derelict this week, did not wear bandanas, so I apologies there. Really
Bummer.
derelict
Bummer.
my bandana duties.
You should add another bandana for every year until eventually your head is just encased.
Yeah, like the
Bald.
watermelon thing, where the watermelon explodes with the rubber bands. Totally.
Past
That's awesome.
guest. We've got some past guests. So Ari, hey. Ari says hi. Ryan Quinlan says bandanas under bandanas. So there you go. John says Liz is wearing her GTD shirt. Badass. Absolutely.
Oh, a little Denver. You see a little Denver distiller name by the name of Todd
Mr. Leopold.
Mhm.
Asked when is this hitting the shelves?
So this is going to hit late summer. I think he's asking about Bentley whiskey.
Yeah,
Oh,
about
that
that.
too. That
So
too.
our timeline to release for bourbon and rye is like 2024. And the single malt, we're taking our time, so that's 2028. So it's actually kind of cool for me that we, like, this Good Guys whiskey has our 2-year-old single malt, some of the first that we made, which is pretty rad. And every other release for that is going to be a ways out.
I'll probably be alive for that.
Todd, I still don't have my bottle of 3-chamber rye, so
Yeah. Saw a lot of press on that, Todd.
yeah,
Over the
that's
last
so cool.
week or
Thank
so.
you.
So, yeah.
Now,
No,
John,
I mean, like, Todd, I'm making jokes. That guy, he's a member of the Good Guy Distillers. He's one of the baddest people in the industry. Like, not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good.
Yeah.
Because we were unclear on that.
he's a big man, though he kind of looks like that one guy in Breaking Bad that kept Jesse Pinkman in the hole. You forget Todd. He looked a little like Todd from Breaking Bad.
I've never seen it.
Todd Leopold. Oh my God. Yeah, same name.
Never seen it.
Never seen Breaking Bad.
Streaming. I thought you people love streaming, you young people.
Yeah.
I watched, I want to say, I watched, like, how many seasons are there? There's like 4, right?
5?
Well, there's
I watched-
there's 5.5.
I watched all of the seasons of that while I was writing my thesis because I could not sit down and write that long without having something on in the background.
Well,
So
you are
I
young.
I set up a room in the basement. This is like 2010. I set up a room in the basement that was just devoted to that with all my papers and Breaking Bad and me typing for like 4 straight months.
Yeah.
So if you're writing a book, Liz.
Yeah, in a way, Liz, you should watch it. It's all about chemistry. And in a way, it kind of is like a distiller.
Hey, can I tell a joke?
Yeah.
Why not now?
What do Liz and I share? I was trying to find out. I made this one up. I was trying to find another way of telling this. What do Liz and I share?
Facial
We
hair.
we both have a genetic disorder. Lou's leaving. Come on.
I was gonna say actually your story about like the genesis of a distiller's becoming a distiller like starts at music. So I actually minored in vocal performance in undergrad.
Awesome.
So I feel like it's a fair assessed like that. It starts in music. I feel like
you said a thing, I think, in one of like your DIAGEO promo videos that like encapsulated a thing for me that I felt like I had never been able to say. You said you called yourself a right brain scientist, which, to me, like this thing about the overlap of science and intuition and like the way, the way playing music speaks to that, like the way, like the use of artistic descriptors and the background and creative expression informs, certain avenues of scientific exploration. You said it, like you killed it. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, Diageo did this thing. I don't know what ever came of it, but they did a thing where they paired up their different single malts to different songs. There's that, and then you have. Did
I
it?
remember that.
That's
didn't
hilarious.
They maturing the not Black Sabbath, Metallica. Are they playing Metallica music to the barrels?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a
Vibration.
a Dave
Yeah.
Pickerel thing or not, but
No, I think that started with Tuttletown. Like, didn't they? Like, they way back. They like had a graduate student come out and measure the frequencies that would vibrate different size barrels, and then made them a CD of these like oscillating frequencies to vibrate
Really?
the liquid heavily in the barrels. Fucking weird and so funny and awesome. And
Yeah.
I should say, much love to the Arenzos. They're that's a really tragic
must be
thing.
tough.
And and they like that father-son team, and Brian Lee was in there too, but that father-son team, when many of us started showing up to conferences, were like, everyone wanted to be them. They were so rad and so fun and like doing it so well. Super inspiring folks.
Yeah, and really nice. Just a really nice film.
Yeah.
And we went to go visit them. It was great.
Yeah.
So what's next? You guys just making now this Rick House you're in now. When does that become a fully operational Death Star?
So it is the barrel side of it is
Star Wars, Liz.
I'm sitting in the blending area, and we're taking our time. We're filling it with barrels.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Oh,
there are barrels
is
in
that
there
what the chairs are for?
Just sitting them, taking a whole new approach, just having the barrels.
Fancy couch back there, the lounge area.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Sometimes I have to lay
Close.
down on the
Very
couch.
nice.
Relax the whiskey. Make it
Yeah,
feel like
I like it.
back. You're lounge.
See, now that's fucking innovation right there.
Our whiskey's so
Couch
relaxing.
couch
It relaxes
rested whiskey?
once maturing.
Couch
What's
relaxed
that, Yoga?
whiskey.
Couch
Oh.
relax.
Yes.
We want our whiskey for that long sleep. We want it to relax.
Yeah, we don't use Ricks anymore. Just lines of couches.
Ricks.
We try
It's hard
different
on the
kinds of
whiskey.
couches, sofas, love chairs. What happens? We'll get
There's
the first result.
There's just been tons of comments here. I mean, again, more comments on goat yoga, nerd stuff.
I see a shout out to Spirit Works. Yeah, right. Timo's got Timo and
Todd
Ashby have
asked
headphones
again
that
when
they put on the barrels.
whiskey is going to be in the shelves.
Jesse Plemons, by the way, is the Todd character from Breaking Bad. Just so look him up.
Good to
I'm
know.
telling you, Todd. Sorry, but you kind of look like him with a beard. Hey, by the way, John McKee also mentions about ACSA. Now it's in December this year down in Louisville. So be there, be square, as he says. And he comes
Please.
from Square State.
Super looking forward to it.
Now, were you, Johnny? You were on this Distillers river raft ride down the Colorado, were you? You seem like the
I
kind
did
you would
not
be,
get
Mr.
to
Nature
go.
Walk.
I was
No?
hoping to go. I've got back issues.
Mm.
And I think the last thing anybody wants on a 21-day rafting trip is a guy who they have to carry in and out of the raft and set up their tent for him. That's the last thing I want to be on that rafting trip.
That might
So
be a nice little exercise, a trust
if there were
exercise.
palm leaves and grapes involved, maybe I would have gone for it, but no. I would have loved to have gone.
Colin
there was
Keegan,
some-
a guy from Newcastle, England, he went.
Yeah.
You realize
Yeah.
he didn't even know what a paddle was. You get, oh mate, what is this? It's a paddle.
He knows how to give orders. Retrieve the paddle, my friends.
Quick, load the cannons. The Spaniards down the way.
I don't know. We're just gonna, to the,
Yeah, it's going to be that.
yeah, yeah, a bunch of pals went on that, but I had to bow out for that reason.
I do.
Next year,
I hope it doesn't interfere with all your smelling and sniffing and walking.
Very little back involvement in sensory. Little known fact. Very
Oh, you
little
gotta
heavy lifting
stoop,
involved in. It's about
sniff.
this much. Yeah.
Oh, well, you know what? We should send you. I'm going to send you your own little sniffing glasses from Glencairn, branded.
Love that. Thank you.
I rarely do that. Only once a week to whatever guest. So.
I only do that for everyone.
Oh yeah, but it's not like you're doing willy nilly. Oh yeah, see,
That's nice.
Yes, nice. Anything else, Johnny? Is everyone happy there? Is there any infighting? That'd be kind of cool to know.
There are some interdepartmental feuds that result in fisticuffs after hours, but we just ask that it take place one valley over, so we don't have to talk about it.
God, the Old West.
Hey, take it out in the desert.
Like in the big country.
Squirt guns. Yeah. Squirt guns full of, I don't know.
Out under the pivot.
Well, out on the pivots. Get out on the pivots and shoot BB guns at each other. Throw ears of corn.
Staff.
We have ear of corn fights because there's no snow out here. So it's just whipping grain.
Oh.
Just
grain or a whole ear of corn.
Yeah.
The whole ear?
Yeah, just the whole ear, depending on how big the beef is.
Okay.
I mean, if it's a major beef, you're going full corn stover spear set.
Or if it's really intense, just grist.
Totally.
Grist.
Yeah.
Totally. Grist in the eyes. That's a traditional assassination attempt.
Sure.
What did Frank Herbert call it? Chalmurky. The rules
from Dune, yeah.
Chalmurky, yes.
Nice.
The poison drought shall only, like they had all the rules, right? So you can blow grist in the eye, you can fire hose mash in the chest, you can spear throw the corn stover, you can corn ear to the back of the head. It's all about how big.
God almighty, man.
I like that. Yeah,
it's rough out here, y'all.
It's rough out here. Yeah, you know what? Little pansy distillers. You want tough distillers.
Hey, only the strong shall survive.
Survival of the distillers.
We don't talk about our fight club.
What happens in Nevada stays in Nevada, as Brady says.
He lives in a corn stalk fight. That would have been. Wait a minute,
I mean, I grew up in Central Illinois. Like, I am prepared with the corn track.
You probably know your corn.
Yeah,
she knows a corn. That's what I was good about that girl.
Do you remember the commercials for Indiana Beach? Did you get those? No, there's more than corn in Indiana. At Indiana Beach. Correction, there is nothing but corn in Indiana. That's it.
Yeah. Well, a giant wind, if you take 65, those giant pinwheels, the wind,
the windmills now, right?
Oh my God. You're halfway through the state. Or no, you're 1/3 the way through the state to Louisville when you hit those.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
So if you ever drive through Evansville, Indiana, down at the southern tip, that's like 25 miles from where my family farm is, where my mom grew up. New Harmony, Indiana.
You and Bill Welter should get together and exchange growing up on Indiana farm story.
Yeah.
If there's
I grew up in Chicago. I went and visited the Indiana farm and then left to get back to Chicago.
I'm more of a dirt bikes and I fell off the hay escalator on my cousin's farm, and the blade went right through my face, right here.
Ouch.
Yeah, I tell people it was a street fight, though, here in Chicago.
I got one right here that you can't really see it.
They call me Scarface. The new Scarface 2. That's what they call me here in Chicago.
Yeah, I've got a picture of Scarface. There he is.
So, if you'd like to learn more,
what is that?
Bentley Heritage Estate.
Sorry, do the Bentley Heritage, then I'll do the Al Capone.
If you'd like to learn more, there's actually a nice little green rectangle. Click it. check out their website and check out more of what they have going on there. Back to you, Johnny.
So that's Al Capone. That's my great uncle, who was his attorney.
Whoa. What was that?
So the Libinati family. Roland Libinati was deep in the mob on the south side of the city. I'm pointing south just to clarify. On the south side of Chicago, that way and that way, for clarity, about 2,000 miles from here. The Libinati family, Roland Libinati was his attorney and was a congressman for one of the districts in Chicago. And when we inherited my great-grandmother's building, there was this network of tubes that went down to the basement, and the mail chutes that you have in old buildings, they had a cash slot, and you'd put money in, and they would pump liquor or wine up into your apartment during Prohibition. It was part of the thing.
Sweet. Al Capone's house is still down there on the south side, and whenever anyone comes to town, they want to go on the Martin Duffy Gangster Tour. I will take you to Big Al's grave. He's buried near most of the North Side gang, which he wiped out. They all kind of share the same cemetery.
Cool.
Just so you know.
To keep your enemies close. You keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You learn. That's a good point.
Speaking of history,
keep trying, Liz.
Speaking of history,
this is history.
Our next guest for next week, come back and join us, Michael Beach.
Wow, good time. That's right, Mr. Bourbon historian.
The Beach Day.
Yeah, we just went on a historic cemetery tour last week down in Louisville.
So come back, join us next week, and we'll learn all about that cave tour and so much more, I'm sure. Cemetery tour, whatever, cave, cemetery.
Beach taking me on cave tours? That would be, oh my, he's a bat. What the hell is this? Oh, that'd be weird.
Johnny,
that would be weird.
It's been so fun.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
This was super fun.
It's been awesome.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Come back next week. Really looking forward to seeing you all in person. So cheers.
Right? Cheers, y'all. Thanks for having me.
Bye, kids.
Thanks, John.
Bye, Johnny. Thank you.
Bye, guys.